involves probably the most whiteboard work as far as on your part than any of the other ones have. Just because you've got to add different parts on so they can see the building of a word, and they can start adding some of the syllables to eventually build a word. So it's just kind of showing them all these pieces. It does build on everything we just did. So it's still going to have a lot of those same components. It's still going to have the dictation and spelling piece that looks exactly the same. It's going to have all of those other pieces that are very, very similar. Our biggest thing is going to be some of like the word formation, the word building. Looks a little more complicated at this level than it did on the other ones. But this one is by far my favorite. You're doing polysyllabic decoding, so you're looking at really complicated words. You know, things like remember, which for us doesn't seem that complicated, but for a little kid, when they see all those letters on there, it's like, oh God, how do I even say it? So it's really showing them how to break that word down. And then it's also doing, oh my gosh, just a ton of different ones. So
I'm sorry, did you give me a whiteboard?
yeah, I just sat right down. I thought everybody still had one. So
And can you hand me a marker and a GI?
Yep, I was trying to clear off the table a little bit because I'm going to sit and write on this one a little bit more so it's going to appear. So I'm trying to be a little bit helpful, but I think I just cleared everything off.
These to go with it.
Yep, there's another note catcher. Yep, I made one for each. Like I said, the page numbers won't match up, but you'll be able to kind of tell based off of, I think, what I've typed in there.
So this basically is like what's in that little tab?
Yeah, it's what's in the tab. That's each box is what's in the tab, but then the notes underneath just kind of give you some ideas of what you should be looking for, kind of some of the main components of it. Okay. And just can I have one because somehow I know I probably just have to so yeah, your books are in a different order than what this is, just because I was reading a little bit different. So okay. So with this one, some things you'll want to just kind of have pre-done. So I believe I have these on page 8 and 9. So if you guys want to look at page 9, in that nice box towards the top of the page, it gives you a list of words that you're just going to go over with your kids. You won't, as students, you won't be doing any writing. As the teacher, I'm going to put them on a board because this is just like the list that I had written up there, and I was having you guys read through them. It's the similar thing. We're just going to be reading through these pieces. So as the teacher, this is something that if you had it printed up ahead of time or had it written up ahead of time, it would just save you a little bit of time. Is it the end of the world? No, it took me, 15 seconds maybe, so I know what the words were to write it up. You won't give your kids whiteboards or markers until they absolutely need them, because otherwise they're going to be just like itching to write on them, and you want them focused up here. So what we're going to do with these ones is we're just going to be reading through these, okay? This is just to make sure that they've got that CBC down. So in the beginning lessons of challenge, it's just making sure they remember. Most of our syllables, when you break them up, depending on where the vowel is, tells you kind of how to pronounce it. And so it's just trying to get them to understand that big words can be broken into little bits, kind of like a CBC. So eyes up here and read.
Bin.
Good. Read.
Sax.
And sometimes my handwriting stinks. So like you're looking at that like, what is that word? And the kids will be like, you didn't make a very good X. And I'm like, well, I don't critique your writing all the time either. I'll fix it, or I'll do my best. So the nicer you can write it, of course, the better it will be. But when the kids get on you, there's that one that's always like, well, you don't have to write it. Like, well, honey, I'm sorry, but I also am trying to write fast. So
thank you for catching that. Here,
yeah. I don't know that I give them that because I'm critique you all the time. But yeah, so most of them, sometimes like my G's aren't always connected. It is down here, but sometimes it's not. So just tell the kids like, let's try.
Good practice at reading other kids get right.
Exactly. All right, read right here.
Pod.
Read.
Doug.
Read. Peg. Now that's the easiest part of the words. Kessa will also kind of help you to know kind of what level these guys are at. If they're barely getting into challenge, you want to start on the easier word list. If they, have been in challenge before or they're doing okay, then you can look at, they've got harder words and then they've got harder syllables. So that's the easy word. And then we're going to go over here into syllables. So I always tell the kids these are like the nonsense words. They don't make any sense. They'll know what a nonsense word is because they've done those Dibbles tests. So they'll know that it's just a mixture of a CVC, but that it doesn't actually have any kind of meaning.
And what's the purpose for these?
Because when they go to read syllables, syllables aren't actual words. They're just words that you put together. So eyes right here. Read.
Neg.
Good. Read.
Sig.
Read.
Cug.
Good. Read.
Cag.
And read.
Nog.
Good. So once again, it doesn't take long to write it up there. If you have it printed ahead of time, it saves you a tiny bit. The harder ones had some blends in it. So the harder words had club with a col, so it's got a blend. The syllables had like flom, so full, so it's got that blend. So that'll be where Kessa can probably point you in the right direction on what you should be starting with that group, okay? If there did, like you guys did those so easy, I might go, okay, well, let's throw a couple harder ones in just to see if you got those ones too, and if so, okay, great. So it's just to make sure that they've got basically that consonant, vowel, consonant, and what sound that vowel makes when you see it like that. That's the purpose of those.
Okay.
Okay? Alright. Then, yours goes into corrections, which is basically what we've been doing the whole time. So if they're messing up one of those vowel sounds, you can point to the wall card and talk to them about what sound that vowel would make. Okay? So that's what it's talking about there. The consonant blends, so when you're blending like a col together, like the C and the L together, if they're missing it, how you can correct for that sound, you would just tell them the sound. You point to it and you say the sound, if it's a CL. And they're messing up this part, you'd say, you point to this part, and sometimes I use two fingers to show them that I'm pointing to these two letters, and I'd say sound, and they would say col. And if they don't, then you tell them col, say col, col, sound, sound, blend,
Plug.
okay. So that's all that correction part is really talking about. Does that make sense so far? Okay, we'll go ahead and turn your page. So, let's see. This part, oh, where it says basic concepts, this optional part, right here. This is that vowel consonant part that I showed you with the last. You want to make sure they have that. Because once again, if they can't tell you the difference between a consonant and a vowel, you need to have that practice. So I know it says optional. I would just do a quick check to make sure they have it. So that's just basically where you're just going to write those vowels on the board and ask the kids what they are. And they should go, oh, they're all vowels. Yeah, you're
And you actually write the vowels, or do you just write this?
You write those vowels first, and then you write the line underneath. And then you have them go through and say, okay, what are these ones? So when they look at that list, you can write those vowels up first and say, what do you guys notice about these? Their letters. Okay, well, what else? What kind of letters are these? And if they don't know, then say, are they consonants or vowels? And if they say vowels, you're like, great. If they don't, then you know you need to talk to them about it. Then write that long string up there and say, we're going to go through it. I want you to tell me vowel and consonant. And you'll go through that. They have to have that in order to move into more parts of challenge. Okay? All right, so we'll continue on. This is just the vowel sound review if they get it wrong. As you can see, it's like 2 pages worth. So we're going to be on page 14, which is open and closed syllables. This is where it's going to be great for you guys because this is going to be teaching you as well, but it's also helpful for them. So you're going to have 2 groups down here at the bottom. So I'm going to write those words on my whiteboard. And then the other set. And I'm going to keep them in their groups like they have it. Okay, so we have open and closed syllables, okay? So basically what that's telling you is it's the placement of the vowel, okay? So over here we have our open, over here we have our closed. Closed, it's making your short vowel sound. Yes, sorry, gotta double check myself. It almost seems like you know it, but then when you have to tell people, you're like, opened, it has your long vowel sounds, okay? So here you're gonna tell the kids, let's read through this together. KSMSF, read.
We.
Okay, this is this word, we, and this has a, because there's nothing after it, it's going to be an open syllable. Well, that's really complicated, right? You guys would be looking at me like, I don't know what you mean. So what you do is you teach the kids this thing, and Kessa will type this up on a poster for you. You'll ask the kid, where's the vowel? And you guys will say, at the end. So where's the vowel?
At the end.
And then you're gonna say long or short. Short vowel is at, it's all your short vowels. Long is where it's saying its name. Okay, so you're gonna say long or short. And because it's at the end, you're going to say long. Okay, that's gonna be like your go-to chant. You're gonna be saying it in your sleep. So where's the vowel?
At the end.
Long or short?
Long.
What does it say?
E.
Good. Read again.
We.
Okay, Kessa, mess this one up. Read.
Go.
Where's the vowel?
At the end.
Long or short?
Long.
What sound?
O.
Read.
Go.
So you see how it's an easy correction then? Doesn't matter what the vowel is, it's the same correction.
Mm.
So, same on the flip side, after you go through all of these, you're gonna come over here and we're gonna do these ones. Kessa, read.
Wheat.
Okay, where's the vowel? And this is where they're gonna say not at the end. The reason they're not gonna say middle is because even if it's at the beginning, it still makes the same sound. So they're just gonna say not at the end.
Okay.
So where's the vowel?
Not at the end.
Long or short?
Short.
Sound?
Ed.
Read?
Wet.
It's an easy correction for the kids. So that's your mantra. Where's the vowel?
Okay.
Long or short?
Okay.
Okay? So it does tell you that in the book. I introduce it here because I think the quicker you get them into it, the better off you're gonna be.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm giving you guys kind of the instruction on it, because that's how you base your syllables. When you start breaking words apart, for remember, wherever those vowels are within that syllable tells you how you say that vowel.
I have no idea.
I told you, it's gonna be like really eye-opening. You're gonna feel like a genius when you
Yeah.
I'm telling you. It's one of those things like I had no idea my
I'm a
entire
terrible
life.
speller too. My mom's
You're
like
gonna
this.
be a better speller after
What
this.
happened to you?
And now you're like, Mom, I know how to spell that.
Yeah.
It's gonna be awesome, I promise. So that's what this part of the lesson is, just trying to get them to understand. It's the placement of the vowel. It tells you how you're going to say it. Okay, pretty cool, huh? All right, so if you turn the page, then the next one, this is just like some vowel play, essentially. So you're gonna have these lists pre-writ for them. So what happens is when they're talking, or when you're trying to do this, sometimes you can just ask them a question like, okay, while I write these, why don't you tell me what you did this weekend, guys? So, Kessa, what'd you do this weekend?
I cleaned my house.
Awesome. Brooke, what'd you do this weekend?
Oh gosh, I don't remember. It was a long weekend.
That's okay. That was kind of how my weekend was. Roxanne, what did you do this weekend?
I did laundry.
Nice. You were productive.
Yeah, I had 2 weeks worth ahead of iron, so.
All right. Kayla, what'd you do this weekend?
I worked.
Oh. Ooh. So that's all another part of that capturing kids piece. You can ask them some questions while you do something to try to build those connections with the kids.
Now, our list was,
A little bit different.
okay.
Okay, it's the same idea.
Yeah.
It's just a different consonant. So essentially, it's the same idea. I just went off of mine and trying to look over. So basically, this is that vowel placement again. So as we read through, they're going to be trying to read the vowel based off of where it is in the word. Okay, so we're going to do column by column. Okay, I believe. Yeah, down each column. So, eyes right here. Read.
May.
May. Where's the vowel?
At the end.
Long or short?
Long.
Read. May.
May.
It's going to say its name. Read.
Me.
Read.
My.
Read.
Mo.
Read.
You.
Good. So now we're going to come over here. Notice where the vowel is. And I tell my kids that all the time. Look at where that vowel is before you answer me. Read.
Am.
Read.
M.
Read.
Im.
Read. Read.
Good.
Same over here. Read.
Mem.
Read.
Mem.
Read.
Mim.
Read.
Mom.
Read.
Mum.
So once again, depending on where that vowel placement is, totally decides how your word's going to be pronounced. It's the exact same letters, depending on where I place that vowel. So you're just showing them that. That's what you're trying to get them across. And I tell the kids that. We're doing this because I know you can read these. I know you're smart enough, but I have to make sure you really understand what that vowel is doing. So we're going to just double check and practice, because if not, I'm going to go back to my mantra. Where is the vowel? Long or short? Okay. All right, so that's basically what that section's telling you to do. Okay. Then it should go on to Fluency didn't have guided spelling for you guys? Mine said optional, so I didn't give you anything. Okay, so then that fluency practice is just like what we talked about with extension. They'll have an independent reading book. You'll do kind of that whisper read to yourself, radio read out loud to me. What we would do sometimes is we would pull level readers and have them read something similar, just so we would all be on the same page, and then I could pull comprehension pieces in it. So it
Where
depends.
are the books for these ones?
They don't have books.
Oh, so that is where the level readers come in.
That's why we used the Classroom Wonders leveled readers. I would have them as part of their group. So since you're starting this later, you can always have a one from a previous unit and have them all read together. And then those leveled readers have comprehension questions that go with it, and they also have like a printable teacher's guide you can get online. So then they would have what they needed to do to maybe just discuss it a little bit.
Do you know what Lexile the challenge is, or like what A through?
I have no idea off the top of my head. We can email, I can email Connie and call her. If you just send me that question, I'll make sure I ask her.
Okay.
And she'd let me know. I think you wouldn't base it off of necessarily this, but what that group is.
Right.
So wherever that group is, if they're at a Lexile of 600, then you would try.
Maybe just look up Dibble's Lexile levels.
Yeah, you could pull it from that. Okay? All right, so if we go into lesson 2, we're kind of just warming up with it a little bit. So it's going to go through a lot of those concepts again. It's going to go through a very similar list like this again to make sure they have this, because if they don't have this foundation, they're going to be sunk. Okay? So you can start them later in challenge if they have some of those pieces, if that's where they scored, and just review this with them. But they just have to have that piece. So it's just going over that vowel part again. I'm just going to kind of jump. Okay, so page 25 was just basically what we just did. There's the may, ma'am, what we just did. So if you turn, this is where it starts to shift, and it does it pretty early. If you look, see where it says syllabic transformations. This is where nope, it's the same, I think. Sorry. Okay, no, this is where you change it. So I call them transformers because it sounds really cool, especially if you have boys in your group. So you go, okay guys, we're gonna do transformers next. Are you ready? Transformers are awesome. We're gonna take this word and we're gonna transform it into a different word by either taking something away or adding something to it. Okay? So if you can turn your book for me just so I can see your list. All right. So this is where, like I said, this one is more writing intensive for you. Okay? Notice where our vowel is. Read.
Hi.
Good. Notice I'm not erasing anything. I'm just adding. Read.
Him.
Very good. Read.
Him.
Good. So I transform that word by just moving things around. You'll never write it and then erase and then write the next two and then erase. So like see how it would P-I, P-I-N, I-M? You wouldn't write P-I and then erase the whole thing and then write P-I-N. You want them to see what you're doing. So you're not gonna do it in your lap. You're gonna have them see what you're doing. They need to be able to make that connection that you're moving something around and that vowel is moving. Okay? So then you'll do it again, okay? Read.
Mo.
Good. Read. Read.
Mom.
Good. And you'll just keep going through that short list.
Okay.
And they're just seeing how you're building on different things and moving things around. Later on, we'll take words and we'll start adding prefixes and suffixes, so things like re and this, and different endings. And so they can see that word that they know is just getting pieces added onto it, or a letter taken away when you take the Y off and add I. So they can see they know that root of a word, and they're building on it. But you want to do it in front of them. You want them to see what you're doing.
Now, kids in the classroom, are they learning this? Like
Our
what-
kids in the classroom
Are we
learning.
learning this concept? This is really awesome. Like,
Yeah.
I want to take this to my
Ish.
daughter and my
Absolutely.
son and.
And you can. Most kids pick this up just like we did in class. Like if you think about how you learned it, did you learn this in school? No. But you learned how to read based off of other things. So your teachers are doing things like this when they're doing their word work within Wonders curriculum. Is it this scripted and this detailed? No. Is it doing this exact program where I'm showing you this part? No. But am I talking about it within the word work? Yes. Wonders does cover pieces of that, but not for 30 minutes. It's like a 5-10 minute part of their whole block of reading, where this is a 30-minute lesson.
Yep.
So remember, these are kids that can't get it. They need extra practice. Am I saying don't use it with your kids? I do. When I go home and my daughter can't do stuff, I absolutely use a lot of these skills. A lot of teachers have these skills, they just don't know that it comes from this book. They know how to do it because they know how to teach reading. So they've got some of these skills and they are using some of them with your students. It's just not scripted, it's not in a book that looks exactly like that. Does that make sense? But it is super cool. So like I said, you're gonna be like gurus when you leave here. All right, so that's what the syllabic transformations, and your note catcher, I called them transformers, right here, because I just think it sounds cool, right? Like who doesn't want to do transformers? And the kids will be, oh, I want to do transformers. And I'm like, I know, me too. And those are the things you're like, well, if you guys can't behave, we can't do transformers. And I'm like, dang it, I want to do it.
And it's okay to like, add your own style. Like, if anybody wants to make the writing it,
absolutely.
Like, who wants to make the Transformers?
Absolutely. If you can make this a lot more exciting for them and not boring, more power to you.
Yeah.
As long as it's not taking up too much time. Like they're not like, ooh, you get to transform while I write it. Like,
and then they're transforming over here.
Exactly. As long as they can stay focused, because it depends on your group. Some groups could totally do that. Other kids, if you start doing that noise, forget it.
Yeah.
Like they're never gonna get it. Okay. So it just kind of depends on where you are with your group. And you'll be able to feel that out. So once again, as we get into lesson 3, it's a lot of the same stuff. It's going over that review of consonant and vowel review on page 34. And remember, that's if they don't know it. If they already know it, you skip that part. If they've got that consonant vowel review, I'm on page 34.
Okay.
Then you can skip where it says optional, you can skip that piece. Don't skip the reading of the syllables. And that's where we're moving them around or you're putting them in. The lists look very similar, so just make sure you read how it wants you to go. Like this one on page 35 wants you to go down the columns like we did with the mim, mom. When you turn the page, then it's got the transformations, and that's where you go across. So the only thing I don't like about SIPPS is it does not very clear on which way you're supposed to go. The boxes look very similar, but they're asking you to do different things, okay? So let me see, I believe we've done the sight syllables.
Now, in the fluency practice, it says students will read for at least 30 minutes.
Yeah, we're doing 10 for sure.
Okay.
They'll get extra reading throughout their whole day. We're dedicating 10 minutes of your time with them for a fluency practice. Okay? Ideally, we'd love for them to do 30 minutes, but your group would need to be an hour.
And
we don't get this.
And we don't have that. Exactly.
They
Okay.
have fluency centers in their reading
Yeah,
class.
so they'll get it, it just might not be with you. Okay, one of the pieces, and it looks like it's in lesson 4 for me, so hopefully it is for you as well. Page 42. Look at that, I turned it. That's awesome, never happens. So page 42 is the introduction of syllables. Okay, so these are just like a lot of your other cards that we were dealing with. You're gonna have your sound cards as well. So you still have your sound cards that tell you, remember if you're not sure how to say it, and I can give you a sentence to use, and then it also kind of tells you where it might occur in the word. So you'll still have sound cards that you'll do, but then with this group you'll have syllables and you'll have sight words. No, you'll just have syllables. So instead of sight words, they just have you do syllables, because these kids should have most of those sight words down. So you'll say this is the syllable L-Y. What's the syllable? It says lee. Read.
Lee.
This is examples of these words are like friendly or jolly. Who is another example of a word that has lee?
Silly.
Perfect. Anybody else?
Family.
Awesome. That one's done. So syllable. Read.
Lee.
Spell.
L-Y.
Read. Perfect. So it's that read, spell, read again still. It's giving them examples. It's telling them if it's a suffix. So this is the suffix, which means it comes at the end of a word. That's where you'll see this. If it's a prefix, it'll say that. If it's just a syllable and it can come anywhere in a word, it'll just say that. Okay? So this is the syllable read. Spell.
E-R.
Read. This is in the words like better, winner. Anybody else have another example? Butter. Longer.
Did you say winter?
Winter. And then this also is a suffix. It's going to come at the end of our word. So it is important to make sure you talk to them about prefixes and suffixes. The reason it's coming at the end of the word is because it's got the dash and nothing after it over here. Okay? So you'll go through and you'll get your stack of syllables and your stack of sounds, and it's the same idea with the cards. You'll probably get anywhere between 2 to 4 syllables. Okay, so it can grow pretty quick. And then any ones that you have, you'll just keep running through. Once you get through, then you can move on to the next section. Okay? Making sense? Okay. Like I said, once you see the beginning part, you're like, oh yeah, now I get it. So then, the next part is in lesson 5, I believe, and we're going to start reading by syllables. So we're looking for the part that tells us, which is right here. No, that's guided spelling. We'll talk about guided spelling for this one in just a minute. Reading by syllables. So page 56. So on page 56 in the top box are the words that you're going to teach the kids to read by syllable. So remember is 3 syllables long, and you're going to teach them how to break that word apart. So what you do is you just write it up syllable by syllable. You don't put the dot in there, the dot is for you. Okay? So they're only going to see the word as what it would look like, but I'm doing it syllable by syllable. So read.
Read.
Good. Read.
Mem.
Notice I didn't go back. I'm building the syllables. That's a B. It's just not very good. Read. Blend.
Remember.
Now let's say they couldn't get it. Then go back. Syllable. Read.
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 Mem.
Read. Blend.
Remember.
If you have to go back because they say something silly here, go back to the beginning and then go through the whole word. And notice I swooped my finger because I'm chunking just the syllable when I want them to say the whole word straight across. Okay? So the next one is hobo. So read, and then they'll laugh. Sometimes. Read, blend. You will see times in here where they will do a syllable and it'll be like assassin, and the syllable's ass. And you just have them say it, because that's the syllable. And you tell them it's not funny and you act like you just don't even know. You will see it, it does happen. Not very often, but you will see where they'll have like something weird in there. Okay? So you will go through all of these, don't skip any of those. There's only like 5 or 6 of them anyways, so you don't want to skip any of those. Okay? Does that make sense? So that's what you do for the reading by syllables. You're just building on to each part of it. Okay? So this is how, like I said, I teach my daughter how to read. Because if she said, Mommy, I don't know how to spell remember. Okay, let's break it apart. Let's remember. Okay, first syllable. Read. You know how to spell read. You can spell read. Can you spell mem? Yeah, you can spell mem. Can you spell bird? Yeah, I can spell bird. She can spell remember. She doesn't know it as a 2nd grader, but she can. So, pretty powerful. That's why I love challenge. Okay. So then, believe it or not, we'll be adding some more. So towards lesson 6 in my book, so let's see if it's the same for you. It starts to get pretty hefty. Yep. So lesson 6, page 71 for you guys. This is where you have your list come in now. So we did just some generic ones, and now you have your list. So A is going to be closer to, like I said, 2nd grade, maybe end of 1st grade, 2nd grade. Kids should be using kind of the A list. If they're 3rd graders, you want them using a B list. If you're doing this with 4th or 5th grade, you're wanting to look more at that C list. Okay? Because those are the words they're going to encounter more. And you want them to be able to break those apart. Okay? So it's the exact same thing that we just did. They're just giving you more choices, a few more words. Okay? The underlined part in red is telling you that it's a sight syllable, and so they should know it. Okay? And then remember, the dots are for you. Don't put them on for the kids, because they're not going to ever see remember broken up like that. They're only going to see it as one long word. we want to train their eyes to be able to go, oh, I see re and I see burr, and I can figure out the middle. Okay. All right. So the next section. Okay, mine's on lesson 11. This is reading entire words. So we go from having them read syllable by syllable to then trying to teach them when they come across a word how to break it apart. And it is for you guys. So 124. It gives you a little bit of introduction on 123, but 124 is going to be where we're starting to introduce some patterns of stuff, okay? All right. Okay, so for this part, it's nice to have 2 different colors of markers, just because you're going to have the words written up there. These sometimes are nice to type ahead of time and then put in one of those sheet protectors, because you can just write on the sheet. Okay, so with here, we're going to be writing these on a board, and we're going to be looking for a pattern to help kids understand how to divide these up into syllables, because sometimes they get caught into counting every letter as a syllable. They don't understand how that works. So we're going to be talking to them about what you have to be part of a syllable. So guys, we're going to take a look at this, and we're going to start to break these words into syllables, and we're going to see what's going on. But first we have to identify our consonant and our vowels. This is why if they don't know those, they can't really do this part. So I'm going to point to a letter, you're going to tell me consonant or vowel.
Vowel. Consonant. Consonant. 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 Vowel. Consonant. Consonant.
Okay, so we're going to start up here. The reason why this is important to know your vowels and your consonants, okay? So I'm going to say, how many consonants are between my 2 vowels? And I'm going to point to my 2 vowels. How many consonants are between? Show me your fingers. This is so that way, as soon as they find it, they're not screaming it out and their partner has no idea. So we've got 2 holding up. So then you're going to say, we're going to say, okay, good, 2. So when we see 2 consonants together, I'm going to ask you a question. Where do we split? Which means where do we break the word? And when we have only 2 consonants, we always split between. So these are rules that you'll teach them, and you're going to teach them just like I'm telling you. When we have 2 consonants, we're going to split between. So 2 consonants, we're splitting between. So I'm going to ask again, how many consonants between my 2 vowels? And you're going to show me your fingers. Where do we split?
Between.
Perfect. And you want them to kind of have short answers, like in between, just between. Good. So then I'm going to go here and draw a line. And I did another color so they can still kind of read what's underneath there. So now we're going to be able to read this word. You know what this vowel is going to say now because of the placement of it. So first syllable, second syllable, blend,
After.
good. Now down here, same thing. I'm going to be looking for my vowels. How many consonants do I have between my 2 vowels? Good, I'm seeing 2. How many, everybody? Use your words. 2. Where am I going to split?
Between.
Perfect. First syllable,
Less.
second syllable,
Sun.
blend.
Lesson.
Now, this, when you guys said it, you said sun. So when they blend it, it's going to sound less sun. Do you say less sun, or do you say lesson?
Lesson.
So then I tell them, flex your brain, and I make them do this. And then that way, later on when you get into really long multisyllabic words and you're trying to get them to put it all together and they know that it's supposed to sound a little different, they can go like this. And they know they just have to tweak it because of how our English language actually pronounces it. It's completely based on how we pronounce it per region, and most of the time we're not pronouncing it the way it was supposed to be intended in a dictionary. So you just tell them, you're going to flex your brain because we know that it sounds a little bit different. And that's okay. It's spelled that way. All right, so down here, this is where it starts to get tricky. You guys are already noticing. You're like, wait a minute, There's not 2 consonants, there's 3. So, here's my 2 vowels. There's how many consonants between my 2 vowels? Perfect. Now, 2 of these consonants are super best friends. They're buddies, they like to hang out together all the time. What 2 consonants do you think hang out together? What ones have you seen that come together to make a new sound? Perfect. You guys are so smart. So we're going to make sure these 2 guys stick together. So in order to do that means I'm going to split here. And I put a dotted line because we're not 100% sure. All the other ones is a guarantee. If it's 2, you split between. When we get into some of these other ones where it's 3 or sometimes there's only 1 consonant in between, we're not sure. So I put a dotted line to show the kids. We're not sure, we're going to look and see because we might be getting it wrong and we might have to move it. So, first syllable,
Sub.
second syllable,
Tract.
blend.
Subtract.
Do you know that word? Yeah, you know that word. What does that word mean?
Take away.
Perfect, good job. So when you get into ones that have different patterns, like 3 or 2 or 1, depending on where it is, you'll have to make that decision. I'm trying to think if they give us one that has just a 1. Yeah, here we go. So let's do the word 0. Eventually you won't have to do the CBC part on top. That's just as introduction. Eventually you'll just go, how many consonants between my 2 vowels? 1. Very good. Where do I split? They're not going to know. So this is what you teach them. You teach them to say, first try before. So we're going to try to split in front before and see what happens. So first syllable, Z. And it's not zay, right? Because that would have changed it. So Z, second syllable, blend.
0.
0. Complex it just a little bit, sounds a little bit different. If for some reason that didn't sound right, let's say it sounded weird, or pretending, then you would say, oh, they go, no, that doesn't sound right. And then you go, very good. So then you're going to teach the kids to say, then try after. You move it over here. Think about what this vowel is going to say. It's not going to say Z anymore. It's going to say Zer.
There.
Last syllable, O. Blend.
0.
That sounds horrible. We know it's not there for sure. And sometimes you get into words where you're not sure and you have to try it first and then have your group try it after and then decide which one would have been right. Because they'll tell you, that doesn't sound right. You're like, okay, let's try it after. And they're like, that sounds even worse. You're like, you're exactly right. That means it's got to have been before.
So first try before,
Then try
then
after.
try after.
Okay.
Do you just go ahead and do that and find?
Some of them you'll have to. When we did this one, it sounded right. I wouldn't make them try it the wrong way.
Okay, if the first way is the right way, leave it.
Unless they think unless you have a kid that's like, nope, that's wrong.
Okay.
Then you can say, okay, let's just have you try it then. Let's try it back. Let's try it with the other way. You guys just listen and tell us what you think, and then have them try it with it all weird, and then you're like, that sounds even worse. And you're like, yeah, so it is here. It's okay for them to see what would happen if you move it, because that's getting them to understand that whole vowel consonant pattern. Okay, so if it's 2 consonants, we always split between. If it's 3 or 1, we always say with 3, you want it, somebody's going to buddy up. I always tell the kids they're good friends. If it's somebody that's always together, I tell them they're best friends. And you know, with your best friend, you don't like to be separated. You want to stick with your best friend. So I just try to relate it to them for them to understand. You can tell them, you can use words like digraph and things like that. That's when you have 2 letters that come together to make a new sound. You can talk to them about stuff like that. If you don't know what those are, then just say they're best friends. Who's going to hang out together? Is B and T going to hang out together? No. T and R? We've seen words that say chur. You know that. You got taught that in the beginning. You got taught that in 1st grade. You know that. And they will. And then you can pull them apart that way. Okay? Does that make sense? So, a lot of times what you'll see kids do too is, especially on words like this, they'll go double consonants, split between. They get all excited. I'm telling you, it's so funny to watch kids. Because they're just like, it's puzzles and they can just solve them. That's why I tell them, this is a puzzle. We're going to solve this puzzle. We're going to figure out what this word is. Because you guys might not know what it is, but you're going to as soon as we get done. And they get really excited to be able to go home. And then tell their parents about it. You can say, why don't you go home and I want every one of you today to teach your parents how to break this word apart. And they'll go home and show their parents, and I mean, you're sitting here going, that's so cool. How cool it would be if your little kid who was a struggling reader came home and showed them this. They'd be all over it. So you can have them do this. It's amazing. So that's basically what you're doing for whenever you get to this read entire words section. That's what you're doing with those lists of words. You're breaking them apart by their syllables, okay? This is where the dictionary comes in handy, because you're going to get harder words and they don't always break them apart for you. If you turn the page, they're showing you kind of where some of them would break. They've got the dot, like planet. Okay, tiny, struggle, and then they've got some lines. So they've got it broken up to kind of show you. But sometimes they might not, so at least some of them in this edition they don't, and so it was nice to have like a dictionary I could refer to. Especially if I didn't catch it during my planning time. I just always had one next to my table that I taught my group at. So you might just want to put like a smaller pocket-sized one in like your stuff that you take, just so you have one. It's just nice. Especially because sometimes it's like, gosh, I don't even know. Let's look it up. I'd rather look it up and teach it to them right than don't look it up and teach it to them wrong.
Yeah.
So, isn't it making sense so far somewhat? Okay, names, if you look on page 127, you've got Sweden up there. That one's pretty much okay, but sometimes you'll get into weird names where you have to, like it's just pronounced differently. So you'll just tell them they'll have to flex that one to pronounce it the right way. The breakup is fine, but the pronunciation is different. If you look on page 127, they've got like the word function. What I start to teach my kids as they get later on in this and they get more of these sight syllables, I'll write words up like that, and I'll say, what do you see? And a lot of times they'll tell me, I see two vowels, I see a double consonant, I see a sight syllable. Well, we know if it's a sight syllable, it automatically breaks it. This word is done. I don't have to go into how many consonants between my two vowels, all of that, because it's breaking it already for me. That's why these are so important for them to know. Okay, so what do you see? I see shun. Perfect. I know it's going to break there. Do I have any other vowels in front of this? Nope, there's only one. It means that word's not going to break anymore. That's it. First syllable, funk. Second syllable, shun, blend, function. Okay. And the book will go over this with you guys. I'm kind of giving you lesson 1 to lesson 50. But I'm just trying to kind of show you how it starts to build. This is the beginning. You start talking about this. Eventually you can just start writing words up there and tell me, what do you see? What do you see? I see this, I see this. Good. And you can start slicing your words up to help them figure out what it is without having to go through the whole routine. How many consonants do you see between my two vowels? 2. Where do you split? Between. I see 3. What do you try? First, try, before. That's only if you can't find these other things. Does that make sense? Okay. So it does start to go a little faster. It is cool once you start seeing how much these words break up and all the different pieces, and you're like, holy cow, that does make that word so much easier to read. They do get, obviously, different lists, same idea. They get longer as you go on. The last one is the metamorphic transformations. Mine's in lesson 21. So we're going to jump. I don't know if yours will be in that lesson or not, so we'll find out.
Yeah, page 207.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, perfect. So this is just giving you the background of it, and I think those are important for you, especially in your first year of not having done SIPPS, just to kind of read through. Just gives you some ideas about where this is coming from, but then you'll have an understanding. You won't have to read that section every time. Okay. If we look at page 208, this is what you're actually doing. So basically, you're taking a root word like differ, and you're adding either prefixes or suffixes on it to change it. So I tell them it's Transformers Part 2. Okay, because we're taking the same kind of idea, and we're going to just transfer. You're just going to be transforming the word. So I write the root word just on the table and then hold it up. So this is our root word. Okay, read.
Differ.
Now, if they couldn't get it, you could say, okay, what do you see? Double consonants. Okay, so we would split it here. So differ. Good, differ. Oh, look at you. That's why that stuff is important.
Okay.
So, you see differ. Okay, I'm going to add something, okay? And you show them what you're adding. So the only thing I added is this. So the word was differ. I added, I'm on page 208. I'm the ENT.
ENT.
So read,
Different.
different, different. People will say it either way. Either way is okay, it's just how they're pronouncing it. Okay, now I'm adding a suffix because we talked about that is a suffix. And I tell them I'm adding a suffix or I'm adding a prefix, whatever this was, and you'll start to learn them because you'll look at the cards and you'll ask them what it is. I'm adding a suffix. Read.
Differently.
If I had written this word up on the board, those kids would have struggled. But if I take parts off of it, they won't. That's what this is showing them. Okay, so then you have the same one, expect, expected, then you'll go back and add. I always put the word in the middle of the board, because you'll be adding prefixes sometimes, you'll be adding suffixes sometimes. Sometimes you'll be adding like double things and you'll end up having to erase it and move it. Try not to as much as you can. Obviously I started to squeeze some things in. So just make sure you always start with it kind of in the middle so you leave a little bit of space to put a prefix on there. Okay? Making sense? Okay. So far, you guys are doing really good. I think that's pretty much it. The only thing that we'll just touch on again really quick is the guided spelling. It's very similar to what we were doing before. I think the only thing that is a little bit different is most of the time, like if we look at the guided spelling for lesson 21 that you guys are already on.
213.
Yep, go ahead and turn one more page. 214. It's giving you the word lists to choose from. We're no longer doing sentence dictation in challenge. They don't have them do it because these guys should already be past that point. That's what they got in extension. So they don't have them do sentence dictation. But if you look at these words, I mean, list A, not too bad. You've got empty, you've got candle. The DLE is a sight syllable, so they should know when you say dull, how to spell that, because you have taught them that is a sight syllable. Okay? If not, sorry,
You're fine.
this is your other handy tool to refer back to. Really only doing it when you're doing some of the dictation pieces. Sometimes you can do it when you have some of the transformers, but these are handy because then when you see dull, you can say that's a sight syllable. It's irregular because you can't sound it out. It doesn't play fair. Okay? But as you can see, if you look over here in list C, like I've got production, differently, majority, exception. This is when you do a lot of that pounding. Let's break that word apart. So your word, ladies, is production. Let's break it into syllables. Ready? Production. For syllable, pro. That is a prefix. We've learned that prefix. Write it. You don't have to go through the sounds because they'll know it. Duck, you might have to go through sounds. Shun, you don't have to go through the sounds. Then we're going to know shun. And that's where it differs. You always are going to break it. Okay, syllable by syllable, 3 syllables. Okay, first syllable, pro, write pro. If you have to sound it out because it's not like a prefix or a suffix or a syllable that we've covered, like duck, you could have them go duck. Okay, write your sounds. They'll come across ones where like, I don't know how to write the k. Is it a C or is it a K? It's gonna be a C. You just tell them. Sometimes there's a reason for it, sometimes there's not. You just tell them. If there's not a reason that you know, you can tell them. If you think there is a reason for that but you don't know it, ask Hessa. She'll either look it up or she'll just tell you there's just not a reason for you. It's just how the scribes from years and years ago decided to spell that word and they totally screwed us. Because they just made up their own spellings and everybody had their own. So that's why ours is so complicated. Okay? That's it, ladies. I really hope you get to teach challenge. Like I said, it is by far my favorite. I think you get the most out of it. You see all these different layers. Beginnings is a lot of fun. It's your little guys. Extension is great because it's kind of in the middle. So all of them are great. I think challenge is just where I have the most fun because I feel like it's teaching me more than just teaching the kids. So yeah. Any other questions for me?
I think it's just kind of
Oh yeah, it's all gonna be like, what?
putting it together, like